Hello and welcome to episode 6 of CFE, Consumer Financial Education. You're with myself, Dylan Hartland, alongside Lerato Jaxa from Heartlines. This is a program in partnership with Nedbank, and I wanted to give you a bit of a lowdown in terms of not only what's happening in today's episode, talking about all things financial health, but we wanted to start out by saying that the Bible does not portray money as evil, but it does say that we should be careful to not fall in love with money, because then it becomes our idol in our life. And if we look at Psalm 62 verse 10, that says, though your riches increase in your life, do not set your heart on them. So when we have abundance, we sometimes tend to be lazy spiritually, and even sometimes we could end up being lazy with our budgeting and just with our money in and of itself, because we think, well, abundance just overflows. The money will never run out, and that is unfortunately a very difficult mindset to have when we think about money. But we're talking about financial health this evening, more specifically budgeting, and talking about budgeting for needs and wants and highlighting the difference between the two. Lerato is from Heartlines.
Yes.
I thought, let me just, also first of all give you a chance to greet everyone today.
Good evening, everybody. I'm so glad to be here once again, episode 6.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited because the topic that we are talking about is a really serious topic. On my way here, I was thinking about how financial talks are so sensitive. Sometimes we take it for granted, but they really are sensitive and they're absolutely necessary.
Right, yeah. Talking about money is very important.
Yeah.
I want to give a bit of a breakdown what Heartlines is for someone who's maybe watching for the first time, never heard of Heartlines. Heartlines is a South African-based NGO that aims at bettering society. When we say bettering society, addressing some of the issues that have a negative aspect in and around society itself, whether it's a family breakdown due to corruption, financial breakdown in families, environmental degradation, lots of degradation. It's a degradation. Yeah, degradation, degradation. Making up new words over here. But the main thing is Heartlines is, without using the pun, the very means that heart is in the name,
right,
is literally what you guys are about.
Yeah, basically just encouraging people to live out positive values.
Right.
And if our listeners and those that are watching would like to find out more about what Heartlines does and what other programs are out there, they can go to our website and look at many other programs that we do that definitely speak to the heart of the community and the heart of the country.
Yeah. Something else that's also pretty cool, I'm yet to watch it myself, the full movie at least.
Yeah.
You've got that movie on Netflix, Nothing is for Mahala.
Yes, it's a great movie.
Is it?
It's particularly when talking about money. Go watch it.
It's a good example of that.
Yeah.
And you guys played a role in that movie as well in terms of planning and producing side of it?
Yes.
Crazy.
It's a movie produced by Heartlines.
And you're one of the main roles as well, I think, eh? No.
No.
You're one of the main actresses. At least.
Me, of course.
Everyone can see how comfortable you are in front of cameras, so surely you act in movies as well. Must be.
That's because you didn't see me behind the scenes.
So you're behind the cameras, not in front of the cameras.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of the things that we're focusing on throughout all the episodes, we're speaking about how honesty needs to be in our earning. So we need to earn money in an honest manner.
Right.
Whatever income we're getting into our life, it needs to be earned honestly, whether it's what job we do, and not trying to do it maliciously or anything like that.
Yeah. Responsibility
in spending, being wise with our money, making sure that we're not just spending it on things that we don't need. And that's also what we're going to be talking about today, the difference between needs and wants in our lives. And also talking about self-control in savings.
Yes.
When we make a budget, we have to stick to that budget.
There we go. Must be disciplined too.
Yeah, you must have discipline. And then also something that we'll maybe address, I think, in the later episodes, is generosity in giving.
Yes.
Understanding that concept.
Right. And something else that we'll also talk about later on is wisdom in borrowing, because that's very important that we use wisdom when it comes to money. So these values that you've spoken about, they play a very, very big part in how we handle our money, because we need to be honest. First of all, you need to be honest about how you are getting your money. Are you working for your money the right way? And also you need to be honest about your money, the money that you are receiving. How much money are you receiving and how much money are you using? So don't be realistic, basically, about your money. And that's being honest with yourself, because the best thing that you can do for yourself is being truthful to yourself and being honest with yourself when it comes to your money. And obviously, responsibility is there. When you are setting up a budget, you need to be responsible in making sure that you are outlining everything that needs to be outlined in a budget and follow it through.
Right.
And so all of these values just go hand in hand with everything that we are talking about. We need to be wise. The Bible has said that to us. Last week we spoken about being wise, that the Bible says that if any of us is lacking wisdom, we can ask God, who gives generously, so that he can give us this wisdom, so that we can apply this wisdom when it comes to our money. So it's important that you become wise when you're dealing with your money. Are you saving the way you are supposed to save? Are you asking yourself questions when you are supposed to borrow money? So all of them are really, really necessary to apply when it comes to making your money work for you.
Yeah. And ultimately what we're trying to do as well is fixating the fact that financial health means that we are planning based on what Scripture is telling us, like you've alluded to now, and also understanding that we are to be good stewards of our resources.
Yes.
Whether that's money or anything
whatever
that pertains to that.
Right. Whatever that you've been given. This reminds me of that story in the Bible when two people were given talents. One was given 5 and one was given 1, and then the one with 1 decided to multiply, and the one with 5 decided to put them away,
to bury it,
bury you know. And so what are you doing with the resources that God has entrusted in your hands? And those are some of the things that you need to look at. You've got these resources. It may not be probably the number or the digits that you want it to be, but the fact of the matter is it's in your hands. So what are you doing with it?
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about as well in the 6th episode of this series. We're talking about how budgeting plays a very important role in your money stewardship, making sure you know where your funds are going. Once you get that your pay slip in, you see those figures, you see the salary coming into your bank account. We spoke about giving your money a name, and that's what budgeting is.
Right.
You say this X amount is for schooling, X amount is for rent, for food, for petrol, all the different expenses we have. And we also spoke about expenses last week, talking about budgeting your expenses, knowing that debt is an expense. You need to budget for your debt, making sure that you can pay off those loans that need to be paid off, that you need to pay off that credit card, whatever it is that you're using, that you need to budget that in. And today we're going to be talking more specifically about needs and wants. I think this is it's a tight rope that people have to walk.
Yeah,
because
it is.
There's so many things, like there was that saying that I remember I used to say to my parents when I was younger, I want to need it.
Yeah.
Like where they say, no, you don't need another pair of shoes.
Right.
You know? You're like, no, but I want to need it.
Yeah.
So that I can get it.
And a lot of it is really that, we need to be able to determine and differentiate what is a need in our lives. Like I keep saying that this financial journey is personalized, is customized to individuals, because what is a need for me may not be a need for you.
Yeah. Right.
But there are general needs that we know affect people everywhere at all times.
Right.
This is water. We need shelter, we need food. Those are basic needs that human need.
Yeah.
Right. And then there are needs that are people specific, where somebody needs to pay for their medical aid because they've got chronic illnesses. You understand? Right. So those are different. So each person needs to determine and write down what are the needs and prioritize your needs in your budget. And then we've got wants. Wants are the things that we desire. And then it's easy to mistaken wants for needs.
Yeah.
Right? Like you are saying, a pair of shoes, I want to need it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's it's easy to make a want just give it so much priority that it overrides a need. And then later on you realize that, I actually spent money on something that was less important. So it's important, Dylan, that when you prioritize or when you look at these things, you need to ask yourself some questions. Sit down with your family. I keep saying this because it's very, very important that when you live with people in your house and then you are spending this one amount of money that is coming in every month, it's important that you sit down with them. All of you together as a family, sit down and determine what are the family needs, what are the wants, and then you then prioritize in your budget. So these are some of the questions that you need to ask yourself when you determine if something is a need or a want. Number one, you need to ask yourself, if this was my very, very last rand to my name, would I buy that thing? So it's something that you need to ponder on. Would you buy it? Number two, you need to ask, would tragedy strike if I waited 30 days to buy this? So I think I just want to ask a question. Have you ever borrowed money or used money, and then after using it, and then you realize, actually, I could have waited, or actually, I really didn't need that? And question number three that you need to ask yourself, is there another way to solve this problem without me spending money? Number four, do I already have something similar? And this question, a lot of us must ask. Especially when we go to clothing stores and stuff, because then you have similar things. I mean, another question that you need to ask yourself, which is question number five, is, can I fix the one that I have? Instead of going to buy a new one.
Buying a brand new one.
Right.
Yeah.
And then question 6 that you need to ask yourself is, can I borrow this thing instead of going to get another one? So it's important that when we want to stick to a budget, when we want to continue on this financial wellness journey, we ask ourselves questions, because if we don't ask ourselves questions, we will continuously buy things we don't need with money we don't have.
Yeah. And that's a trap that we get caught up in. I think understanding just the mere fact, as basic as it is, a need is something that you can't live without, and a want is something that you can.
Yes.
And you just need to be able to structure it in a way that you understand what your absolute needs are for your family and what your wants are, and things that you want to add on top of things.
Yeah. I said some time ago that we shouldn't make our budget boring.
Yes.
So by saying this, I'm not saying do not add what you desire in your budget. You need to add what you desire in your budget, but it should not override what you need.
Right.
So it's important that we remember that.
Yeah. And I think it's understanding as well that the whole overall picture of budgeting. So if someone has just tuned in now to episode 6, we've had 2 previous episodes talking about budgeting. Episode 4 and 5, just addressing how important a budget is and how important you need to structure your budget, how you need to structure your budget, those type of things. If you have any questions while we're streaming live right now, you can get in touch with us right in that YouTube comment section. Lerato and myself will, I guess, just unpack your questions. Whatever questions you have, you're more than welcome to ask them. Let's continue on this idea of what you need to look at when you're budgeting. And I think oftentimes when I think about myself, when I'm doing something, say now it's a budget that I'm not familiar with, I'm very scared of 2 things. Like 1, doing the budget wrong, and 2, which I think we've touched on in the previous episodes, but 2, I'm scared of making mistakes and the implications of those mistakes. So can you maybe highlight a few things that an individual must just be aware of when they're drawing up a budget, and how important it is to have one as well?
drawing up a budget, Dylan, basically is commanding, or maybe not, rather, let me not use the word commanding, but it's giving your money direction. And so one of the things that you do not want to do is to guessing your budget. So don't guess your budget. Don't say this is how, like, don't have it at the back of your head and say, I know that I need this, I want that, and not write it down, because this can mess with your money.
Yeah.
So it's important that you write things down, you have it on paper, so that if there's any mistake or something that you've forgotten, you can be able to rectify it as soon as possible. And then another thing that you need to be able to do, or need to be careful of, is tracking your budget. So you need to be able to track your budget. Make sure that you follow through. Hence, you are saying that sometimes you feel like you might make a mistake, and the truth is you probably will, and that's okay, because of you are at the beginning stage of drawing up a budget.
Right.
So it's a journey. So we cannot expect a perfect journey, because of you learn month by month.
Yeah.
And each month is different. Each month is different. It doesn't come the same. So January will not be the same as September. And so some days you will make mistakes, and that's okay to make mistakes, because of mistakes means it's an opportunity for you to learn something different and something new.
Yeah.
Another thing that you need to communicate. I keep saying this because it's very important. Communicate your budget with your family. They need to know what can be bought, what cannot be bought.
Yeah.
And then another budgeting mistake that we do, or that we need to be aware of, is to keep up with other people that have things that we don't have. There's a line that is used in the movie that you spoke about earlier on, Nothing for Mahala. It says, buying things you don't need with money, we don't have to impress people you don't know.
Oof.
So it's important that you do you deal with your money in an honest way. You need to know how much you have, if that thing you can afford, because trying to keep up with the Jones is going to keep you broke, because you don't know how the Jones got to where they got. You don't know how long it took them to get to where they are. So it's important that you budget your own money, personalize your own money, because if you don't personalize your own money, then you'll always, because there's always going to be somebody that is ahead of you.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to keep up with other people, then you will always be behind, basically.
Yeah, you'll always have to be running to catch up with those around you.
Yeah.
We've got a question here from Direct to You, when we were speaking about not tracking your budget and sort of just letting your money go, and you think you have it in your head, but you actually lose it. They're basically asking, how can you track your spending?
So we did speak about this also a few episodes back, that if you can have a little book, or a lot of us are using smartphones where you can be able to write down. So when you buy things, especially in the first few months of you trying to get your budget right, everything that you buy, you write down. So that's how you track your budget. Everything you buy, you write down. And then at the end of the month, you consolidate. You look at everything that you bought, and then you start prioritizing. Okay, I bought this, but this is not necessary. I therefore have extra cash that I can save towards 1, 2, 3, 4 things.
Right, yeah.
And that's how you're tracking your budget. So you go back to the budget that you had put up at the beginning of the month. At the end of the month, you consolidate everything, and you compare your spending with your budget.
Yeah.
And then this will then talk to each other, and then it will be able to show you what you have done that is outside of your budget that you can fix for the following month.
Yeah.
And then once you start doing that, once you are able to merge the two, then you'll be able that there are actually more opportunities than you thought for you to save. To
save money,
yeah.
And I think Direct has another question. I think that is quite a misconception when you think about budgeting, and it's actually going to lead us into our third question. The question is budgeting only for people who are in debt?
No.
That's a massive misconception.
Yeah.
It's only for the people who have bad credit. They need to pay off loans. They are the only ones who need to budget. But how did they get into that situation?
Right.
Without
Exactly.
budgeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's important. Anyone that has money, anyone that has an income should budget, because budgeting is going to help you to avoid some of the financial mistakes that others finding themselves now. So you don't want to not to budget, because not budgeting will get you into the debts that you are talking about. So it's important that you start budgeting now before you get into debt, because of that is going to direct you on how you can deal with debt, if you find yourself in debt. So do not allow yourself to be in debt first before you start budgeting. Last week we spoke about one of the tips about budgeting, which is budget, because not budgeting is the biggest mistake you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake is to not budget.
Yes.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. As we sort of start bringing the program to a bit of a close, we've got a few more minutes to go. I wanted to jump into maybe some of the consequences of pure budgeting or poor budgeting, and then also some tips maybe, I guess, for people. As we're wrapping up the topic of budgeting, and then we'll tackle what next week's episode holds in store for us about financial health. But I think let's maybe just touch on those two things just to create a bit more understanding with regards to budgeting.
So the consequences of poor budgeting or not budgeting at all is wasteful expenditure, because now you have money that is coming in, but if you are not budgeting, that means you are not giving your money direction on where to go. So your money is just there, and you will buy when you come up or see something that you want.
Yeah.
Which then means that your money doesn't have direction, which will then, unfortunately, you will end up spending for things that you don't need. And then not budgeting will also not help you. You will not be able to reach your financial goals. So budgeting will help you see how much you have and what kind of financial dreams you can achieve, because of your money has directions. You know how much you can save. And then also budgeting, there's your answer now, direct. The question that you asked.
Yeah, direct to you.
Yes. Yeah. So not budgeting will affect your debit orders, because if you don't budget, it's easy. These are some of the things that are easy to forget. Paying your creditors what they're supposed to pay, or paying on time.
Yeah.
So if you don't budget, it's easy for you to forget those, and once you forget them, they affect your credit history. And once your credit history is affected, then
it's difficult to get that back on board.
Yeah.
I see.
So
before we go on to another, I see we've got another question and we've got a comment.
Okay.
Right. So we've got a question from Inquisitive Kid saying, how can you stick to your budgets? I think we're going to be touching a bit more on that as well as wrap up today's episode.
Yeah.
They're going to say there always seems to be something that throws out the budget, something that, causes it to go left or right. And then we've also got a message from Desmond Chalke as well. He says, the hardest thing I ever did is to write down a budget. It was brutal for me to have to look at how much money I spend on things I don't need. And I would recommend it if you want to be honest with your money.
Yeah.
Very, very important thing. As we wrap up talking about budgeting. And finally, there's another question that came in. Can I do a budget on paper or should I use Excel? I think there we sort of touched on that at episode 4 where we said differentiates from person to person.
Right.
The same way we said a need is different from person to person. If you find, like, I'm someone who's more digitally inclined, I'm going to forget a piece of paper somewhere in my house. Maybe I might lose the budget, whereas an Excel spreadsheet for me would be the bomb, because then I have it with me on all my devices, what have you. So that would work well, I think, with an answer to that. So just dependent if you are. I know some people find it easier to think when they're writing it pencil to paper.
Yeah. And it's important that you, when it comes to budgeting, it's important that you use what works for you.
Yeah.
So if paper works for you, then do it on paper. If a phone works for you, then do it on phone. Just don't have an imaginary budget.
That's like just It's yeah.
Yeah,
my
so it's important that you write it down, because this will help you keep track, and then go back and review
Right.
every now and then. And then I also want to just go back to what Desmond is saying,
Yeah.
because it's important. Once you see the importance of budgeting, you will continue with budgeting, even though on the journey you will make mistakes. But if you see that it's important for your financial journey and financial goals,
Yeah.
then you will be persistent, and you will continue to push on until you get to the position that is comfortable for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think as we sort of wrap up this evening's episode, we also spoke a lot about emergency funds. So I think that sort of answers Inquisitive Kid's question, how to stick to a budget, understanding that if something does throw you off,
Yeah.
you have an emergency fund that
Yeah.
can help you to
Yeah.
bring you back onto your budget.
Yeah. Some people have done renovations. And earlier on, I was talking about renovations. You know how you have money set aside for renovations, and you know how much renovations are going to cost you.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, there's something that bursts in the bathroom, or
Yeah.
some pipes somewhere,
comes flying
and
out
then
of
that
somewhere.
throws you off,
Yeah.
because of you didn't budget for that. And those things do happen, which is why it's important to have that emergency fund, because emergency fund will then help you to deal with those situations that throws you off.
Yeah.
So these are also, some of the tips that you were talking about when it comes to budgeting. Emergency fund, emergency fund, emergency fund. So it's important to have that.
Very crucial.
And then it's important that you start small. Don't push yourself to hate budgeting. Because if you do too much and you want to achieve too much too soon, then it will throw you off.
Yeah.
So you need to pace yourself. Start small, and then if you make a mistake along the way, it's okay to make mistake along the way. Go back, review, fix and adjust what needs to be adjusted, and then continue going.
Yeah.
And then you need to look at your go back to review, and then get your family to participate in your budget, even though you are not living with your family, because a lot of us at some point we send money home, or we buy groceries for our families. Call them if you have to call them and say, this is how much money I'm getting. I used to buy you 1,000 rands groceries, but because of the budget that I have set down, I'm not going to be able to use 1,000 rands now. I'm going to go back to 500 or 800 rands.
Yeah.
They will, most of the time, they will understand when you sit down and communicate this.
Also,
Yeah.
I guess it's about being realistic as well.
Be realistic.
Yeah.
And a budget is about that, because a budget, like Desmond is saying, a budget is scary.
Yeah.
Because a budget wants you to be honest with you. And if you are not honest with yourself, it's going to be hard.
It can lead to some more pressing issues.
Yeah.
Any final remarks as we wrap up today's episode? We're talking about budgeting for needs and wants, and as we wrap up budgeting, the whole topic in and of itself as well, and also highlighting that you're going to be with us until the end.
Yes.
You're going to be with us until episode 9.
Until episode 9,
even though
yes.
previously we had said that your
Right.
colleague was going to be coming through to replace you, but you can't.
I'm going to be here.
It's difficult to replace people who are really good at what they do. That's what the industry says. So,
Yeah, well, I'm so glad to be here. But just as we wrap up, don't forget that this is a journey for you to get to a financial wellness state. And then if you see that as important in your journey, you will continue to push until you get it right. And if you want to get more information, you can go to the website www.netbank.co.za. Once again, you can download a booklet that has a template that can help you to budget. That's just an example. You don't necessarily have to do it the same way, but you can customize it to yourself and make sure that it has it covers you holistically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lerato, thank you so much for joining us once again on episode 6. It's been absolutely awesome. And thank you so much for tuning in as well and watching. Please, a reminder to also like and subscribe to Impact Online's YouTube channel. And we welcome you to join us for next week's topic as we continue on this journey of financial health. But for myself, Dylan Hartland, and Lerato Jaxa from Heartlines,
Yep.
it's a goodbye and God bless you.
Thank you.